Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'm very pleased that you're here, and I'm hoping that you're in good health and safe. Today, I'd like to finish up this one chapter of a very long dissertation from Jacqueline Stone. And she's been speaking about the 3,000 realms, but she's touched on many things. And this last part of the chapter deals with something that I've talked about before, but I don't know if anyone really has talked about the form of the second chapter in Gongyo. When we recite the second chapter, we culminate that chapter with the 10 Suchnesses, right? And we repeat the 10 Suchnesses 3 times. Does anyone know why? I know, this is a video. Of course I can't hear you. But it's something, one of those things, of probably many things as we practice, that we do without really understanding why or what the logic is and the way that we do it and so forth. So she touches on this, and I have, and you can search on this channel, the 3 bodies, the 3 bodies of Buddha. And so the first thing that I will disabuse you of is that there's a tendency when we first talk about aspects of Buddha, that when we begin our practice, and sometimes well into it, depending on who your guides are for your Buddhist practice, we tend to think of Buddha as the person, Shakyamuni or Siddhartha or whatever. And so when you hear the 3 bodies of Buddha, you think, oh, this is that mystical thing where Buddha changes forms and these different things, which is absolutely wrong. And as I said, you can look for other videos on this channel where I've talked about the 3 bodies of Buddha. But it's interesting to know that in our reciting, in our Gongyo every day, that we reinstantiate the meaning of the 3 bodies of Buddha. Now, I've talked about the 3 bodies of Buddha in the reasons for Daimoku, how our practice of chanting and recitation instantiate the 3 bodies of Buddha. And okay, I'll stop teasing you. The 3 bodies being the Dharma body, the manifest body, and the reward body. And when I've talked about on this subject, I've wanted to convey first that Buddha is a life condition which involves a mental expanse, a use of our samsaric mind, our emergent property from this apparatus of samsara, the mind, and we break the boundaries of that mind by invoking and establishing our Buddha mind, Buddha nature, Buddha-ness, right? Kinds of ways of describing Buddha as an all encompassing potential, opportunity, mind. So that, again, I'll keep using that grocery store analogy right now. I think it's wonderful that instead of running into our normal grocery store and the 4 aisles that we usually use in that grocery store, by invoking Buddha, we suddenly find ourselves in the middle of an immense grocery store with aisles for every culture and type of food on the planet. Suddenly the options are overwhelming, and our little aisle seems familiar still, and we can feel safe there, but it seems inadequate because our experience can be so much huger, right? More huger. So in that regard, if you understand that that expansive experience of mind is what alleviates us from our narrow attachments and identification with this one burger aisle in Vaughn's or whatever store you go into, or restaurant or whatever, that there is implicit in that 3 facets which we as Buddhists can identify into what that shift is. So on the one hand, that Buddha-ness is a state of mind that we're working to achieve and hang on to with our practice. That's the Dharma mind, the Dharma body of Buddha, the Dharma mind. Body because it's instantiated in samsara, right? And because we, I, self, samsaric entity, apparatus, are achieving this opening of the mind, that is our manifest body. Same thing, same Buddha-ness, but it acknowledges that Buddha-ness, this ultimate, fully expressed opportunity, potential mind, unencumbered, right, only occurs here in this samsaric apparatus. So it's important. There's a distinction there. It doesn't need to be made, but it's interesting to make it, to relate that this is not some other place, some other thing after death, some mystical thing. It's an actual thing. It's something that you are instantiating, manifesting, right? And because you recognize that you yourself in samsaric apparatus, even with all the identification you make, can just fall away all of those attachments instantaneously by invoking the Dharma mind, the Buddha Dharma mind, within this body, which is transformed to the Buddha manifest body through the opening of this mind. So there you have the Dharma and the manifest. And that experience, achieved as it is in this apparatus, is the great reward of our practice, the reward body. So really, in Buddhism, they're identified in 3 different ways, but it's all Buddha. It's 3 in the 1, 1 in the 3. It's the process, the actualization of enlightenment. And it's just spoken of very distinctly in 3 different ways because we need to constantly remind ourselves that this isn't unaccessible, mystical other, that it is within what the samsaric apparatus has manifest for us to instantiate Buddha. The 2 are inseparable. So whenever you hear this dialogue of earthly desires are enlightenment, or the world and all of its thingness is itself the very substance of enlightenment, or some verbiage to that effect. It can be confusing if you don't understand that this is a repetition of the idea that Buddha-ness, this clear, open, inclusive, all-embracing, universal mind, is nowhere else, not in another place, that it occurs in this very sentient, even insentient mind. Right? So the three bodies are just focusing that in on the invocation and the establishment, the manifesting of that clear mind, otherwise obfuscated by our samsaric attachment to our narrow parameters that we navigate our karma all the time. When we invoke and open the Buddha mind, the Buddha-ness, then all those karmic parameters but they're essentially our enlightenment, because why am I dropping so many frames? I gotta stop moving my arms around. I guess it's just too much for this laptop to keep up with. I apologize. I'll try. I am trying all sorts of machinations to get rid of this. It seems to have just come about in recent months. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So it's fascinating to understand that as we chant and recite our Gongyo, in that first part of Gongyo where we end up with Nyose Sho, Nyose So, Nyose Tai, Nyose Dig, Nyose Sa, Nyose, the 10 Suchnesses, we repeat them 3 times because we repeat the Suchnesses through the lens of each of the 3 Buddha bodies. It's like a daily reminder that there's no difference in these different aspects of our enlightenment. Our enlightenment is here now. It's nowhere else. Our enlightenment is manifest through this very samsaric thing that we are. And because it does that, it's the accomplishment of our enlightenment, the reward body, all at once, all 3. But we remind ourselves in a different way. So let's read the rest of this chapter and you'll see what I mean. Even if one has a medicine compounded of 100 or 1,000 herbs, if he fails to put it in his mouth and take it, his illness will not be cured. In this case, as you know, in Buddhist rhetoric, illness is ignorance. It's the not understanding that we are actually Buddha. The illness is that we don't see that. We don't experience that. And that is what creates stress, anxiety, quote-unquote, suffering. Though one may have treasures in his storehouse, yet another analogy, if he does not know how to open it, he will suffer thirst and hunger. Right? You can store away all the food like, many cultures still do today in the north. And I mean, we have very fancy ice boxes now, but this is the human experience. You store away, drinking water, food, you salt from your hunt, different foods so they'll keep. This whole storage means that you're very fortunate. But if you don't know how to get into your storage, once you've put stuff into it, then you starve, right? So it's another way of saying the same thing. And even though one may carry medicine in his purse, if he does not know that he should take it, he will die. So it's not just that you may knowingly collect things in order to survive, but if you have medicine, good things, things that promote your health, but you don't know that you should ingest them or take them in order to produce those results, then it's like you don't have them at all, right? Again, these are different ways of looking at quote-unquote ignorance of your Buddha nature. The gem called the wish-granting jewel is described in the 500 Disciples chapter and possesses all treasure within itself. The virtue of this sutra is just like this. The following goes without saying if one reads it in addition to observing the mind. So again, she's deciphering the earlier teachings from Tendai Chi-i Tendai, and then Japanese Tendai much later. And these two competing ideas of meditations on the mind and recitation as a way of invoking our Buddha nature. And that was many times more weighted to the meditation on the mind and not so much recitation. But that's ineffective for the latter day of the law. And this is where Nichiren totally faults Pure Land, but also Zen and other forms of Buddhism, because they're practicing only partial truths or older teachings that are irrelevant for the time and the capacity of the people. But even if one does not practice meditation as mentioned before, when one reads the passage dealing with the 10 suchnesses, right, as the, quote, so-called suchnesses of the Dharmas, the suchnesses of their characteristics, etc., all of the different suchnesses, because suchnesses has the meaning of emptiness, the characteristics, the nature, the essence, the power, etc., all the suchnesses of our person received through our prior deeds, karma, and the 88 delusions of view and the 81 delusions of thought, and you can look those up, they're all dissecting this very thing, that it possesses in their emptiness are the recompense body Tathagata, the reward body. When one reads the passage as that is the Dharma's such like appearance, in other words, now you're talking about not just the Dharma itself, but the Dharma's appearance, suchnesses, how do they appear in the world? Because this has the meaning of provisional existence, this apparatus, the characteristics, nature, essence, powers, and so on, of this our own person, again, back to the individual, received by virtue of our prior deeds, and the delusions like dust motes and sand grains that it possesses, are all at once the manifest body, Tathagata. This samsaric place, with all our parameters and attachments, is the body of Buddha, manifest. When we understand, as we recite these things, we view the suchnesses slightly different in each case. And when one reads the passage as that is, the Dharmas are like this, in accordance with the meaning of the middle way, the delusions arising from ignorance, accompanying our characteristics, nature, etc., received by virtue of our deeds, again, karma, recede, and the mind is opened to reveal one's present body as the Dharma body, Tathagata. The three recitations of these 10 suchnesses have the meaning of the three Tathagata the three Tathagata bodies, being one body, and the one body being three. Though divided into three, they are one. Though established as one, they are three. So, that's how she ends that chapter on the 3,000 realms. And it's important to understand this that this is yet another facet, another important thing to value our Gongyo, right? So with Daimoku, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, we invoke, we establish, we experience our Buddha. And when we recite the Gongyo, the Hoben chapter in itself introduces this truth of instantiation of the Buddha in mind, in body, in this very samsaric existence. And then when we move on to the 16th chapter, or the lifespan chapter of the Tathagata, this is where, when we recite our Gongyo, we remind ourselves that this Buddha, once again, has been extant through beginningless time. In other words, the Buddha that we experience when we invoke it is the same Buddha that exists without time throughout the entire universe. Or if you understand the entire universe as the very time-space thing that we experience, there is no separation from the beginning to the end of the universe, whenever the end will be, right? And scientists are still talking about this, how the universe came into being, how it's been around some 40 billion years, and how it continues to expand and speed up in its expansion to the point where things are disappearing from our ability to see it because it's expanding faster than the speed of light that will transmit to us images from now further and further away. And that's at some point, what, will it just go the other way and collapse? Nobody thinks that anymore, but that might change, who knows. Or will it just explode into its component parts and drift as little bits of stuff? Or will it be cosmologically confined by time-space and cycle right back to the Big Bang and start all over again? I like that one. That seems to agree more with Buddhism than any other thing I've heard. That's by Roger Penrose, by the way, if you want to look up. I always forget the order of these 3 C's, but it's conformal cyclical cosmology. I may have said that right. It's very interesting to study if you're into that sort of thing. The bottom line for us as Buddhists is that what we're attaining and invoking isn't specific to any time, to any life, to any non-life, to any outside life. It is part and parcel of what we are, without the limitations of this samsaric karma. It refers to a karma that goes all the way back to the initial agitation of quiescent energy that becomes formation and everything after that. So this is why I say, when you invoke your Buddha mind, suddenly, quite suddenly, and sometimes suspiciously, many more things become apparent in your life that you may think, wow, I chant and then this happened. But the truer way to understand that is that I chanted and I could then see this opportunity. It was there all along. But I was held back from seeing it by my tendencies and my conditions. Karma. Karma is like putting up these little fence posts or veils or curtains or blind spots. It's actually, when you practice for a while, you can feel a bit frustrated by that. Because as you get more adept at opening your Buddha-ness and seeing opportunities show up in your environment, you begin to question why you don't see them without working so hard. Right? But give yourself a break. This is why I say be kind to yourself. We are samsaric beings. Our apparatus is, by its nature, a limited scope of experience and understanding. But it's only limited by our own karma. So by chanting and opening our Buddha-ness, we start dropping those little dominoes of sequestering. And wow, why didn't I ever see that? I didn't know I could do this. Right? This happens constantly as we chant and we recite. And not always apparently. There is a lot of, what's it called? Inconspicuous reward. Right? It's inconspicuous because a lot of little toothpicks are falling down from our fence. And they're allowing certain opportunities and changes in the way we navigate this apparatus through this life. Certain friends that maybe were holding us back and we didn't know it, they sort of drift away. And we think, well, I don't know why we don't talk anymore. Well, have confidence. Your Buddha-ness is making them less essential, necessary, maybe even protecting you from. And then other people pop up in your life and they're very essential in a very short amount of time. And that's benefit. That's reward. That's your Buddha-ness saying, look, this is here for you. So it's not, the verbiage of the translation is the wishing jewel or the treasure tower. The treasure tower is you. Unencumbered you. So this is why we need to always appreciate our practice, be thankful for it, because we are fixing our samsaric limitations. And the reward comes in ways you may not even expect. Right? So be attuned to how powerful your practice is of opening up your own potential. And that's, each of us has our own path, our own massive accumulation of karma, right? So anything that starts to break down those little blind spots, wow, that's amazing. Sometimes it's shocking. Sometimes it's a little scary. But that's the nature that's why we say cleansing or cleaning or clearing. Right? Sometimes you got to wash off a heck of a lot of mud to see, ooh, I got a bad cut there. I need to take care of that cut. Right? I mean, that's good to know as well. But overall, the experience is tremendously expanding. All right, so let's see. That didn't take too long. So we're done with that chapter. It's a big, thick book. And I don't know. I know the PDF is available online. I don't know if there's a print of it available other than through academic. I think it's, where did she get this PhD? I think I found it on a library. Honolulu, Hawaii, has a very extensive Asian studies department. And this is where I found this PDF online. But I believe she got it from UCLA. And they may offer it in their bookstore, but it won't be cheap because it's an academic journal, right? Or dissertation. So, I put that PDF on my online print site, lulu.com, right? But I didn't make it available to everyone because I don't want to rob her of any copyright. I might try to write her and see if she has a problem with doing that. But I would suggest I will do more research on this too. But if you're really interested, not everyone's interested in reading I don't remember how many pages this is, but it's well over 1,000. It's a big collective book. PDF, but certainly you can peruse the PDF online if you're interested in this kind of dissection of Nichiren and Tendai and medieval Buddhist practice in Japan. There's a lot of jewels in it, I will tell you. But, I mean, if you're patient and you don't want to invest in even the paper to print something like this out, I will be talking about it in and out as I continue to read. I've read about a quarter, a third of it, maybe. So as I read through her dissertation and I see relevant points that I think would be wonderful to discuss, I will share. So if that's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. In the meantime, if you haven't read all of Nichiren's Gosho, or the Lotus Sutra for that matter, I will remind you that there are playlists on this channel dedicated to those two things. And it would take you a year if you watched a video a day to go through it all. So you can jump around, you can follow the playlist and just go one after the other. Each chapter of the Threefold Lotus, each Gosho that I found, the Gosho Zenshu, as well as the I always forget the organization name that Nichiren Shu promotes for the writings of Nichiren. I'm getting a few of those books. They're not here yet, and I may re-up the Gosho videos just because these are different translations of a different corpus, and I will read through them. If there's a substantial difference in their interpretation, I will definitely do videos on that. If they basically are regurgitating the same that I've already gone through, I don't know. You tell me in the comments. It's nice to get new videos as we practice, but it's also essential that I want everyone to learn how to do a little bit of research on your own and use that search criteria on this channel to go and look for a specific Gosho or a subject matter, because YouTube does a really great job, not the YouTube search, but the search within the channel of a search result that has many, many videos, some 10 years old or more, on a subject, and, allow for my evolution of rhetoric and understanding. When you watch a 15-year-old video, I may use terms and ideas that are still somewhat plagued by the rhetoric we all have to sift through in order to get to the essentials. I think I can see in my own history of videos tremendous improvement over time as to more clarity about the actual Buddhist practice, chanting and so forth. I've had to revise older books for the same reason, where I didn't catch at that time some of the perhaps misleading words and biases of cultures in there. And, I work very hard to try to remove that bias so we can get to a clear understanding of our practice. I think that's essential. And all of the malarkey that comes from religions and other cultures and stuff that gets glommed on into the very words. It's something that Shakyamuni talked about, is we samsaric beings would get very hung up on words. And these days, it seems like no matter what you say in any format to anyone, there's always another voice, 10 other voices, 1,000 other voices trying to tell you that you said it wrong, that you should use this word instead of that word. And so on the one hand, I don't obsess about that too much, because I think that if you're honest and you portray with enough words, which certainly I'm guilty of, you can circumlocute a reasonable assimilation of what you're actually trying to share. On the other hand, there are some words that just throw a wrench into the works, like the word faith. That, especially in the West, that word faith, it's mystical. It inculcates all kinds of misunderstandings. This idea that something will come from outside of you is the critical component of the word faith that is absolutely not Buddhist. You have to have confidence. You have to have a resolute mind. You have to be determined. These words, these are concrete. We react with these knowing that these are things that we personally do. But when we throw faith into the mix, it's cloudy, right? To different degrees. And I try to remove it wherever I see it, in Buddhist literature, in Buddhist translations. That's why I did a whole 6 volumes of Nichiren's Gosho, available on lulu.com/spotlight/Kuhn, because I wanted to remove as much of this inappropriate language throughout the translations. And I think I did a pretty good job. I have been re-editing those volumes for a decade now. And I'm pretty proud of and confident of the result, that I now have these 6 books, larger print, so you can read the darn things. If you've ever read some of the available library of Nichiren's Goshos, you need magnifying glasses and a loupe, a magnifying glass, as well as magnifying glasses. Anyway, the print is too frickin' small. So I have it in 12-point type. You can read it, you can mark it and still read it. And so it ends up being 6 volumes of varying thicknesses. And I tried to collect them in groups that made some sense in the scholarship of Nichiren. Of course, as I'm reading Jacqueline and as I've studied in the past, there's a lot of talk amongst academics over the last 100 years what can be proven to be written by Nichiren and what is suspect as apocryphal disciples may have, or where they were lifted from Tendai and commented around and offered as Nichiren writings. But, you know, I derive a lot of confidence from Shakyamuni's exhortations on this, that if we study all of Buddhism, the truth will out. It'll come through, even if it was written by a disciple or if it was a combination of different things that came about and were accepted into the Nichiren canon, then there's something to offer there. They may not be, and I've done this in the Gosho, you know, in many videos, I said, this one doesn't sound like Nichiren, does it? This doesn't sound like Nichiren's voice. But it's interesting that it offers this perspective, and that does fall in line with what Nichiren was teaching. I'm honest about it because I think we need to be honest with ourselves that ancient information, depending on all of the hands, eyes, and verbiage and languages and cultures that it went through transmission, might be a little bit clouded. But let's face it, instantiating your Buddha nature, seeing your maximal potential in life, and coursing in that way to help others do the same, it's pretty simple. It really is pretty straightforward. So all of the scholarship of Buddhism at some point needs to say that. If it starts drifting into, and you hold a fig leaf in the wind in this direction and pick your nose and jump up and down on your left foot, no, probably not Buddhism. Right? I mean, we're smart, right? You can figure it out, certainly your own way. Now, having said that, Nichiren himself excoriated certain schools of thought that were offering bizarre permutations of Buddhism that weren't in line with the truth. But I think as you study, that becomes apparent as well. Many of us in our Sangha have come from other traditions. That says something, doesn't it? Even other schools of Nichiren that have drifted into their own sectarian whatever. Right? It becomes obvious. We know our Buddha nature is there. It can sense. Ooh, that's not right. So I have great confidence in your practice. You will figure this out, and your Buddha-ness will manifest. I know it will, because every scholar since Shakyamuni has said so. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, right now, Buddha-ness. Okay? So, now I've blabbed on long enough. I'm going to call it a day. And once again, if there's something about what I talked about today or the previous days or previous videos, try your best to come up with a question to specify what it is that confounded you, that seemed to sound wrong to you, because you may have heard it wrong. I may have said it wrong. I need to know. So correct me or ask me a question. That's a better way to do it. Did you mean da 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 da? And I'll go, oh my goodness, I didn't explain that adequately. And that will give me a response opportunity for our Sangha, because everybody's got questions. So share. Okay? And take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself and others. Enjoy your practice, because it's awesome. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Bye for now.